The air inside the alien auction hall was thick with heat, greed, and the stench of money. 100 alien species filled the dark chamber, their jeweled eyes glowing in the shifting blue lights. Above them, in a glass cage, 2 small alien girls stood trembling, barefoot, shivering, their silver skin reflecting the cold light. A tag blinked above their heads, Lot 47, twin orphans from Sector 9. At the back of the hall, a lone human sat on a cracked chair. His clothes were torn, his face thin, his eyes shadowed by exhaustion. His name was Elias Wren, once a cargo pilot, now just another drifter in the outer colonies. His stomach growled. He hadn't eaten in 2 days. His only credit sat inside a chipped digital card, barely enough for 1 meal. But as the auctioneer's voice thundered, "Opening bid, 2,000 credits." Elias's eyes locked on the little sisters. They were holding each other so tightly, as if letting go would mean the end of everything. One of them was whispering softly in the other's ear. He couldn't hear her words, but he could see the fear, the kind of fear he remembered from Earth when the human cities burned. The crowd roared as a tall, green-scaled alien warlord raised his hand. His voice slithered like poison. 3,000 credits. Both of them. Together. The auctioneer smiled with sharp, golden teeth. "Ah, Lord Krathel joins the bidding." Every creature in the room went silent. Everyone knew Krathel. A collector of rare species. A butcher. The twins' future, if sold to him, would be worse than death. Elias's fingers trembled. "Don't do it," he told himself. "You can't even feed yourself." But then he remembered 2 small faces, his little sisters, years ago, lost in the chaos of war. He had promised to protect them, and he had failed. Now, as he watched the alien sisters shaking in the cage, that promise burned inside him again. He raised his hand. A ripple of laughter spread through the hall. "Is the human drunk?" someone hissed. "He can't pay even for oxygen," another jeered. Elias ignored them. 4,000 credits. The auctioneer blinked, almost amused. 4,000 from the human scavenger. Lord Krathel turned slowly, his massive jaw clicking in irritation. "You dare, insect?" Elias met his cold eyes. "They're not yours." Gasps filled the air. The crowd loved drama. Cameras zoomed in. The screen above displayed. "Human, 4,000 Krathel, 5,000. 6,000, Elias said again. His voice shook, but didn't break. Sweat ran down his neck. He didn't even have that much. But he had one thing left, his ship's core license, his last asset. If sold, he'd lose his only home. But if it saved them, maybe it was worth it. 7,000, Krathel snarled. 8. 10. 11. The hall turned electric. Bidding was no longer about money, it was pride versus madness. The auctioneer's smile widened. "Gentle beings, we have ourselves a show." The little girls in the cage watched silently. The elder one, maybe 10 years old, whispered, "Why is the human doing this?" Her sister replied softly, "Maybe he doesn't want us to cry." Elias's chest burned as the numbers climbed. He had pledged everything. His hands shook, his vision blurred, but he didn't stop. 15,000 credits, he shouted. The crowd gasped. Even Krathel paused. Then, slowly, the warlord stood. His voice was cold and heavy. "Let the fool have them. When he cannot pay, I will take all 3. The auctioneer's hammer struck down. "Sold. To the human." Cheers and mockery mixed together. The lights shifted red as guards surrounded Elias. "Payment verification?" Elias pulled the data card from his pocket. "Transfer everything," he said. "Even the ship license." The guard's eyes widened. "You're giving up your ship?" "Yeah," he said weakly. "I won't need it where I'm going." As the crowd began to disperse, Lord Krathel watched him with a slow, deadly smile. "You've made a mistake, human. You can't protect them forever." Elias didn't answer. He was already climbing the platform. The girls stood motionless as he reached them. They were smaller up close, their eyes enormous, full of fear and disbelief. He knelt to their level. "You're safe now," he said quietly. The older one whispered, "You bought us." He nodded. No. I freed you. Her eyes filled with tears. Why? Elias gave a faint, tired smile. Because someone should have done that for my sisters, and didn't. The younger one reached out, her tiny hand trembling, and touched his palm. Her skin was cool, soft, glowing faintly. You're shaking, she said. He laughed weakly. Yeah. I'm not very good at being a hero. A moment later, his body swayed. The exhaustion, the hunger, the stress, all hit him at once. The world around him dimmed. He felt small arms catch him as he fell. Human, the elder cried. Don't sleep. But he was already slipping into darkness, his last thought echoing softly, at least they are still together. Outside, the rain began to fall over the alien city. Lord Crathel's ship hovered nearby, its engines humming like a predator's growl. The auction might have ended, but the real fight for those girls' lives had just begun. When Elias woke, everything was white and silent, too silent. He blinked, confused by the brightness above him. The ceiling hummed faintly. For a moment, he thought he was dead. Then pain hit him, deep in his ribs, his head pounding like drums. He turned his head slightly and froze. Two small figures were sitting beside his bed. The alien sisters. Wrapped in thin blankets, eyes wide and uncertain. One of them held a cup of water with both hands. The other was drawing shapes in the air with her finger, glowing trails of blue light. When they saw him move, both gasped softly. You're awake, said the younger one, her voice trembling between joy and fear. Elias tried to speak, but his throat was dry. The older sister quickly lifted the cup. Here, she said, offering it to him carefully. He drank, the cool water running down like life itself. Then, his voice barely a whisper, where are we? The older sister looked toward the door. A doctor took you here. You fell at the auction. He nodded slowly. And the warlord? Her hands tightened around the cup. He was angry. He said you stole us. But the guard said it was legal. Elias exhaled in relief, short-lived relief. He knew Crathel wouldn't let this go. Not a creature like him. The warlord had money, power, and cruelty. He would come for them, no matter what papers said. The door hissed open. A nurse, part cyborg, stepped in, holding a tablet. Human, your treatment's complete. But your credit transfer was flagged. You have nothing left. I know, Elias said. The nurse glanced at the girls, then at him. Then I suggest you leave. Quickly. The warlord has already sent bounty signals. He sat up slowly, groaning. His body ached, but his will didn't bend. Where's my coat? The nurse hesitated. You shouldn't. Where? He repeated. She sighed, pointing to a locker. End of the hall. But human, you'll die if you go out there. He gave a tired smile. Maybe. But they won't. Outside, the neon city roared like a living machine. Giant screens flashed alien ads, flying craft screamed overhead. Elias led the girls through a narrow alley, pulling the hood of his worn jacket low. Stay close, he murmured. The older one, her name, he'd learned, was a wine, walked silently, clutching her sister's hand. The little one, Leia, kept looking up at the lights. So many colors, she whispered. Don't look up, Awayan told her. He said stay close. They passed a group of armored guards scanning IDs. Elias slowed, pretending to check his comlink. His heart raced. The screen above them suddenly flashed a wanted alert. His face. Fugitive human. Stole government property. Awayan gasped. They called us property. He glanced at her. They're wrong. Don't believe them. She looked at him, really looked, and saw not a savior, but a tired man running on empty. Yet his eyes, even now, carried something unbreakable. They ducked into an abandoned transport bay, its roof dripping with acid rain. Elias leaned against a wall, breathing hard. You shouldn't have saved us, Awayan said quietly. He smiled weakly. You sound like someone who's seen too much. I've seen what happens to people who help others, she said. They disappear. He crouched, meeting her gaze. Maybe. But disappearing for the right reason, isn't the same as dying for nothing. She didn't answer. But her little sister, Leia, crawled closer and handed him a small glowing pebble. "This is lucky," she said. "It belonged to our mother." He closed his hand around it, feeling the faint pulse inside. "Then we'll keep it safe." Above them, a drone buzzed, scanning light flashing across the floor. Elias's instinct screamed. He grabbed the girls and pulled them behind a container. The drone paused, scanning heat signatures. "Hold your breath," he whispered. The red light swept across them once, twice, then moved on. The silence after felt like victory. But when they stepped out, Elias saw something painted on the wall in alien script, a symbol he recognized, Krathel's crest. The warlord's men had marked the city. They were being hunted. He tightened his jaw. "We can't stay here. We move at dawn." "Where will we go?" Awayan asked. He looked toward the endless city lights. "Somewhere they don't care about credits. Somewhere quiet." "Does that place exist?" she asked. He hesitated. "Maybe it's just a story. But stories are what keep us alive." Later that night, the girls slept on a blanket he found in a trash crate. Elias sat awake, watching the rain slide down the metal window. His reflection looked hollow, broken, but alive. He touched the pebble in his pocket. Its glow pulsed like a heartbeat. "Why did you do it, Elias?" he asked himself. You could have walked away. But in his heart, he already knew. The night his own sisters were taken, no one had stepped forward. The world had turned its back. That memory had never stopped burning. Now, maybe saving these two could mean something more. He whispered softly, almost a prayer, "As long as I breathe, no one takes them apart." Outside, thunder rolled across the alien sky. In a far-off tower, Lord Krathel watched a holoscreen showing the human's image. His claws scraped the glass. "Run, little human," he hissed. "Run as far as you can. I will still find you." The storm intensified, neon lights flickering like dying stars. Elias closed his tired eyes for a moment, unaware that the price of his compassion was only beginning to be paid. The metallic city never slept. Neon lights bled through the fog, painting the night in violet and blue. The rain hissed against the rooftops of Vaughan 9, the alien megacity where the poor vanished and the rich ruled. Elias pulled his hood lower and guided the two sisters through the crowded lower streets. Around them, aliens of every kind hurried past, scaled, feathered, glowing. No one cared about a tired human and two small orphans. But the wanted alerts flashing on the digital walls told a different story. Fugitive human, reward, 15,000 credits. Last seen with 2 minor specimens. Awayan gripped his coat tightly. "They are hunting us." "I know," Elias said softly. "That's why we keep moving." He led them through a maze of narrow alleys, the air thick with smoke and oil. He had mapped this part of the city long ago, back when he worked as a courier. Now, every shortcut was a chance to stay alive. But the sound followed them, distant engines, getting closer. From the rooftops above, drones moved like steel vultures. Their red eyes scanned the ground. Then came the thunder of boots. Krathel's mercenaries, hulking reptilian soldiers with plasma rifles and armored suits, marched down the main street. One of them spoke into his comm, voice crackling. "The humans on level 3. Orders are to bring the girls alive. The buyer wants proof." Elias heard it. His pulse spiked. He turned sharply into a tunnel, dragging the girls with him. The tunnel smelled of rust and rain. "Down here," he whispered. "Don't talk. Don't look back." The younger sister, Leia, stumbled. Her small feet slipped on the metal floor. She bit her lip to hold back a cry. Elias stopped and knelt, checking her leg. Blood. A small shard of glass had cut deep. Awayan panicked. "She's hurt." "Quiet," Elias said. He tore a strip from his own sleeve, wrapped it tight around the wound, and lifted Leia into his arms. "Hold on to me." "But you'll slow down." "Then I'll slow down," he said simply. The words hit Awayan harder than any blaster shot. No one had ever spoken like that to her. Not in this galaxy. They reached the edge of the iron market, a maze of glowing stalls and robotic merchants. Elias slipped through the crowd, trying to blend in. A vendor shouted, "Fresh protein slabs. Half price for off-worlders." Another was selling black market data chips. Elias handed the girls a small, dirty cloak. "Keep your heads down. Don't look anyone in the eyes." They walked quietly. Awayan's hand trembled inside his. For a few minutes, it seemed they'd lost the hunters, until a sudden boom echoed through the square. A plasma blast tore through a stall behind them, sending smoke and sparks into the air. "They found us!" Awayan screamed. Elias grabbed her hand and ran. Leia held onto his neck, sobbing softly. The mercenaries fired again. Shards of neon glass rained down. People screamed and scattered. "Through there!" Elias pointed to a maintenance shaft. They ducked inside just as a bolt hit the wall beside them, leaving a burning hole. Inside the shaft, everything was dark. The hum of the city was replaced by the clang of pipes and the hiss of steam. Awayan whispered, "Why do they want us so badly?" Elias hesitated, then said, "Because some beings see value only in what they can own." "Then why do you help us?" He paused again. "Because I'm done watching good things get destroyed." Behind them, metallic footsteps echoed. The mercenaries were entering the shaft. Elias looked around. There was only one way out, up. He spotted a rusted ladder leading to a hatch. "Go," he said, lifting Awayan first. She climbed quickly, pulling her sister up next. Elias followed, his body screaming with pain. The hatch opened onto the rooftops. Wind howled. Lights from the city stretched endlessly below. Then came the sound, jets. Drones rose from the streets, scanning the roofs. Awayan's eyes went wide. "We're trapped." Elias scanned the edge, then saw a narrow bridge connecting to an old human building across the gap. It looked unstable, half-collapsed, but it was the only chance. "Run across," he said. Awayan shook her head. "It'll break." "Then we move before it does." He pushed forward, holding Leia tight. The bridge groaned under their weight, rust flaking into the darkness below. The wind howled, the drone's red lights closing in. Halfway across, one of the metal cables snapped with a sharp clang. Awayan screamed. Elias shouted, "Keep going." The bridge shook violently. He lunged forward, throwing Leia into Awayan's arms just as the last support gave way. The bridge tore apart with a thunderous crash. Elias fell, grabbing the ledge of the other side at the last second. His fingers slipped on the wet metal. Awayan cried out, dropping to her knees. "Take my hand." He looked up at her, breathing hard. "Don't let her fall," he said. "No matter what." Her eyes filled with tears. "You're not letting go." He smiled weakly. "I've been falling for a long time." Then a mechanical voice echoed behind them. "Target acquired." A drone hovered, charging its weapon. Awayan screamed, reached out, and fired the small blaster Elias had given her. The shot hit the drone dead center, exploding it in sparks. Elias pulled himself up, rolling onto the platform beside them. His arms shook, but he was alive. Leia threw her arms around him, sobbing. "You didn't fall." He coughed a weak laugh. "Not today." Behind them, the wrecked bridge smoked and burned in the rain. For now, they were safe. But Elias knew safety never lasted long in Vaughn 9. He looked toward the horizon, where the old human embassy still stood, forgotten, silent. "Come on," he said. "There's a place we can rest." And as the three of them disappeared into the storm, Lord Krathel's ship hovered miles above, scanning the ground below. His voice crackled through the comm. "Let him run. The longer he runs, the more it hurts when I take everything from him." The storm had faded into mist when they reached the edge of the city. Elias could barely stand. His body ached, his hands were raw from climbing, and the cut on his arm had reopened. But ahead, through the fog, the faint outline of an old building shimmered beneath broken lights. The human embassy of Unity, once a proud monument, now stood in silence, its walls cracked, its banners torn. Dust and vines crawled over the letters carved above the entrance. "For peace among the stars." Elias exhaled, almost a whisper. "Home, once." Awayan looked around, cautious. "This place is empty." That's why it's safe, Elias said. No one comes here anymore. Not since humans left this sector. The door screeched as he pushed it open. Inside, the air smelled of rust and rain. Holographic lights flickered weakly, showing ghosts of old days, humans shaking hands with alien diplomats, smiling, believing peace could last forever. Leia clung to his coat. It's scary. Elias knelt beside her. It's just old, not scary. Like me. She giggled softly, the first real laugh since the auction. They found an old resting chamber, dusty seats, a broken fireplace. Elias used a flare from his emergency pack to light some dry scraps. Warm orange light spread through the room. Arwayan sat close to the fire, watching him silently. His movements were slow but sure, every action done with tired purpose. Were you really a soldier? She asked suddenly. He hesitated. Not exactly. A pilot. Cargo, sometimes people. During the war. You fought aliens? Sometimes, he said quietly. Sometimes I just ran from them. She lowered her gaze. And now you're saving them. Elias looked at her across the flickering flame. Maybe that's how I paid back what I did wrong. Arwayan frowned slightly. You think kindness is payment? He shook his head. No. Kindness is survival. Without it, none of us have a chance. Later, as the sisters slept huddled together under a thin blanket, Elias walked through the hallways of the abandoned embassy. His boots echoed softly on the metal floor. The walls still had portraits, human explorers shaking hands with alien leaders, smiling like they had built something that would last. He paused before one photo, a young man in uniform, his arm around two little girls. His heart clenched. His sisters. Anna and Mara. He reached out, touching the image with trembling fingers. You'd be their age now, he whispered. If the war hadn't taken you. A tear slid down his cheek. He wiped it away before it could fall. Behind him, a faint sound, soft footsteps. He turned. Arwayan stood in the doorway, watching him. They're your family? He nodded. Were. She walked closer, her small hands clasped. You lost them? Yes. Long ago. I couldn't save them. His voice broke slightly. Now, maybe I can save you instead. For the first time, she didn't look afraid of him. She stepped forward and hugged him lightly. Then maybe they sent you. He froze, then slowly, his arms came around her. He didn't say anything. He didn't need to. Outside, lightning flashed again, but it wasn't the storm this time. It was searchlights. Elias stiffened. Through the cracked window, he saw dark shapes moving in the mist. Krathel's scouts. He whispered, they found us. Arwayan's eyes widened. Already? Too soon, he muttered. We have to move again. He ran to the control room. Most of the systems were dead, but the emergency shield was still half-functional. He flicked the old switches. A soft hum filled the air, and a dim blue barrier shimmered across the entrance. Arwayan ran after him. That won't hold them for long. I know, Elias said. But it might buy us time. Leia appeared at the doorway, rubbing her eyes. What's happening? He knelt, forcing a calm smile. We're playing a game. You have to stay quiet and brave, okay? She nodded. Like hiding. Exactly. Outside, the scouts scanned the ruins. Heat signatures detected, one said. 3 of them. Orders. A voice came through their comm, cold and reptilian. Lord Krathel. Bring the human alive. I want him to watch when the sisters are sold again. Inside, Elias pulled a small blaster from his belt, half power left. Not enough for a real fight. But maybe enough to make them hesitate. He whispered to Anne, take your sister and go through the back tunnel. It leads to the old gardens. What about you? I'll distract them. She shook her head violently. No. We're not leaving you. He placed a hand on her shoulder. Arwayan. I promised I'd keep you safe. Promises mean something. Her eyes filled with tears, but she nodded slowly. She took Leia's hand. We'll wait for you. He smiled faintly. I know you will. As they disappeared into the tunnel, Elias turned back toward the main door. The blue shield flickered as figures moved behind it. He raised his weapon. His reflection glowed faintly in the light, tired, bleeding, human. He whispered to the empty room, "If this is how it ends, let it mean something." The door exploded in a blast of red light. Metal flew across the hall. The scout stormed in. Elias fired once, twice, hitting one square in the chest. He ducked behind a pillar as plasma bolts scorched the air. Through the smoke, a voice hissed, "Run all you want, human. You can't outbid fate." He grinned weakly, whispering to himself, "Maybe not, but I can delay it." And with that, Elias Wren, the broke human who had bought freedom with nothing but his heart, stepped out of cover, ready to face a galaxy that never forgave kindness. The night sky burned red. Elias ran through the smoke-filled corridors of the old human embassy, his lungs screaming for air. Every corner of the once holy hall flickered with firelight. The glass murals of peace treaties melted in the heat. The air stank of plasma and betrayal. He could still hear the echo of the explosion that shattered their safety. The back tunnel, the one he had told Orion and Leia to use, had collapsed in flame before they could escape. He had trusted someone. He had trusted the wrong person. Hours earlier, a figure had come to their hidden door. A human. He wore a miner's uniform, soot-covered and tired, but his eyes had been sharp with recognition. "Elias Wren," the man had whispered. "You don't remember me, but I know you. I was with the fleet on Titan base." Elias had hesitated. A human was rare out here. Too rare. Titan base was destroyed. The man nodded slowly. "Yeah. I made it out. Heard what you did, saving those alien kids. The whole sector's talking." He'd smiled then, a smile that looked real enough. "You need supplies, right? Food? I know someone who can help." Orion had looked at Elias with hope. Maybe he's telling the truth. Elias had wanted to believe it. Wanted to trust one of his own kind again. He was wrong. Now, flames devoured the embassy, licking at the steel beams. The miner had sold them out to Krathel's bounty network for a handful of credits. The betrayal cut deeper than any wound. Elias kicked open a fallen beam, coughing as smoke poured around him. "Orion! Leia!" he shouted. His voice cracked, lost in the roar of the fire. "Elias!" a faint cry answered, from deeper inside. He stumbled through the wreckage, heat biting at his skin. The floor trembled as another blast rocked the building. Debris crashed down, shaking dust from the ceiling. He found them trapped behind a collapsed wall. Orion was trying to lift a beam off her sister's leg, her face streaked with soot and tears. "She's stuck," she cried. Elias dropped to his knees beside her. "Hold on, Leia." He braced himself and pushed. The metal burned his palms, but he didn't stop. His muscles screamed, his breath came ragged, and still he pushed. With one last desperate heave, the beam rolled aside. He lifted Leia into his arms. She was trembling but alive. "Come on," he said, voice shaking. "We're getting out." Outside, the night raged with chaos. Krathel's mercenaries surrounded the ruins, their armor glowing like molten gold. One of them laughed through the comms, "Your kindness ends tonight, human." Elias ducked behind a fallen column. The embassy's broken arch cast strange shadows across his face. His blaster was nearly empty. He had 5 shots left. Orion looked terrified. "There's too many." He smiled faintly. "There always are." He pointed toward the east wall, where part of the building still stood. "There's a service shaft behind that. You climb it and don't stop until you reach the roof." "What about you?" "I'll keep them busy." Orion shook her head fiercely. "You're not leaving us again." Elias touched her shoulder gently. "I'm not leaving. I'm buying time." Her lip trembled. "You always buy everything with pain." He gave a broken smile. "Maybe that's all I have left to spend." The mercenaries moved in. Elias waited until they were close enough to see his eyes, and then fired. 1 blast. 2. 3. Each shot was perfect. Each one cost him precious seconds. Orion dragged her sister toward the service shaft, sobbing. "Come on, Leia! Hurry! Leia looked back once, just long enough to see Elias standing amid the firelight, his figure surrounded by smoke and fury. He shouted over the chaos, "Run! Don't look back!" The last plasma bolt hit his shoulder. Pain shot through him, but he stayed standing. He raised the blaster one final time, and fired at a fuel cell embedded in the wall. The explosion was deafening. The whole embassy erupted in flames. From the roof, Arwain clutched Leia as the blast wave shook the night. Fire engulfed the building below. "Elias!" she screamed. Her voice cracked into the wind. There was no answer, only the rising roar of the blaze and the faint shimmer of embers rising into the night sky. For a moment, it looked like the entire galaxy was burning. Leia buried her face in her sister's shoulder. "He said he'd come back." Arwain's tears mixed with ash. "He will. He has to." But deep inside, she knew, some promises are kept in ways words can't explain. Far below, beneath the burning ruins, a shadow moved among the fire. A broken hand reached for the glowing pebble, the one the sisters had given him. Elias gripped it weakly, holding it to his chest. The stone pulsed faintly, matching the rhythm of his heartbeat. Through the smoke, he whispered, "Stay together, always." Then everything went silent. Above, the night carried the fire's glow across the stars. And somewhere, far beyond the flames, the galaxy began whispering the story of the human who burned so others could be free. The galaxy had seen wars, conquests, and the fall of empires. But it had never seen a story like this. Arwain woke to silence. Her head pounded, her throat burned from smoke. When she opened her eyes, she saw the endless sky above her, black, endless, sprinkled with faint stars. The fire below had died into embers. Leia lay beside her, covered in ash but breathing. For a moment, Arwain didn't remember where she was. Then it hit her, the embassy, the explosion, Elias's voice shouting, "Run!" Her heart cracked open again. She crawled to the edge of the roof. Below, the ruins of the once proud human building smoldered like a graveyard. "Elias," she whispered. The word trembled through her lips. "You said you'd find us." The only answer was the whisper of the wind. Leia stirred, clutching the glowing pebble he had carried. Its soft blue light pulsed faintly, alive. She murmured, "It's still glowing." Arwain held the stone close to her chest. "Then maybe, he's still with us." By dawn, they left the city. No one stopped them. No one dared. The explosion had drawn attention across the sector. Humans were not welcome in this part of space, yet every news feed was now showing the same image. A broken man standing in flames, shielding two alien children with his body. The footage had been caught by a scavenger drone that broadcasted everything to the interstellar net before being destroyed. The image spread like wildfire, across colonies, stations, and ships. Human sacrifices himself to save alien orphans. The last embers of Earth's heart. What began as mockery became something else, unease, admiration, fear. Because in the galaxy's long memory, humans were supposed to be dangerous, stubborn, chaotic, unpredictable. But this was different. This was love. And that was something the galaxy couldn't control. Weeks passed. Arwain and Leia hid aboard a transport ship, traveling through forgotten trade routes. They slept in maintenance tunnels, stole food when they had to, and carried Elias's stone like a relic. Everywhere they went, whispers followed them. "That's them, the humans' girls. Are they really the ones he saved? They say the warlord who hunted them lost half his army." The universe was changing, and the sisters didn't even know it yet. One night, the ship docked at a small outpost orbiting a dying star. A kind-faced mechanic offered them water and a place to rest. "You're safe here," she said softly. "The story of the human reached even here." Arwain frowned. "Story?" The mechanic smiled and activated a holoprojector. Blue light shimmered into the air. Elias appeared, standing tall in the fire, his arm shielding the girls, his face calm. The image froze there, like a painting. "They say his name was Elias Wren," the mechanic said. "They say he gave everything for 2 lives no one cared about." Leia's eyes filled with tears. "He wasn't a legend. He was just Elias. Maybe that's why he became one, the mechanic replied. Days turned to months. The story grew, told in markets and taverns, in the halls of alien academies and soldier camps. Some called him the human who defied the warlord. Others called him the spark of mercy. And somewhere deep inside, Krafel raged. He watched the holos from his throne room, claws trembling with fury. They worship him, he hissed. A starving insect. His second-in-command bowed. My lord, the story has spread to 5 sectors. Even your allies quote his name as virtue. Krafel slammed his fist on the table. Then erased them all. The sisters, the story, everything. But it was too late. Because stories are living things, and this one had already taken root in the hearts of millions. On a quiet moon far from the noise, Arwain watched a small screen inside an abandoned shelter. The image showed alien children, hundreds of them, lighting blue candles. Each one whispered the same words before setting their candle afloat into the wind. For the human who didn't walk away. Leia leaned on her shoulder, her eyes glowing softly. He's not gone, is he? Arwain smiled faintly through tears. No. He's everywhere now. She took out the pebble and placed it in the dirt. The ground beneath it began to glow faintly, soft blue light spreading outward, like veins of starlight. Someday, she whispered, we'll make sure everyone knows what kindness costs, and what it gives. Above them, the first human ship in decades entered the sector, drawn by the signal of the story. Its captain stared at the holofeed and murmured, Elias Wren, you did what diplomats never could. You reminded them we were human. By the next cycle, murals appeared on stations, and a movement had begun, the Kindness Pact. Aliens from rival worlds swore never to sell children again. Others opened sanctuaries for the abandoned. And through it all, one name echoed like a heartbeat across the stars. Elias Wren, the human who made the galaxy afraid of its own heart. Years passed. Stars were born, and others died, but the story of the human who outbid a warlord never faded. Across hundreds of worlds, his name became a quiet prayer. Monuments rose on planets he had never seen. Statues carved from crystal showed a human kneeling, shielding 2 alien children with his arms. Beneath every statue, the same words were engraved in hundreds of languages. He had nothing, yet gave everything. On a silver dawn beneath the twin suns of New Earth, 2 figures walked along a field of white flowers. The taller one moved with quiet grace, her silver skin now faintly scarred, her eyes bright with wisdom. The smaller one, though grown, still carried a spark of innocence in her smile. Arwain and Leia. No longer the frightened children of the auction. Now, the voices of peace for an entire galaxy. 1,000 years' worth of history had grown from their pain, and today they were coming home. Arwain looked ahead at the horizon. The ruins of the old human embassy, the same one where Elias Wren had fallen, had been rebuilt. Its white walls glowed under the sunlight. Above the entrance hung a new emblem. A human hand holding 2 smaller hands, one human, one alien. Leia smiled softly. It's beautiful. Arwain nodded. It's what he wanted. A world that remembers, not repeats. Inside the memorial hall, light streamed through tall glass windows etched with scenes of their journey. The auction, the chase through the city, the fire, the storm. At the center stood a crystal monument, shaped like a flame. Inside it, suspended in light, was the small blue stone, the lucky pebble that once pulsed in Elias's hand. It still glowed faintly, as if his heartbeat never stopped. Arwain stepped closer. Hello again, Elias. Her voice broke softly. Leia placed a hand on the glass. We kept our promise. We stayed together. For a long time, neither spoke. The silence felt sacred. The air itself seemed to hum, as if his spirit still lingered, listening. Finally, Arwain said, they asked me once what humanity really was. I told them it was you. She smiled through tears. Not the soldiers, not the leaders, not the machines. Just you, a man who was starving and still chose to be kind. Leia whispered, he changed everything. Arwain nodded. He showed them that mercy was power. Outside the hall, Crowds had gathered, aliens of every color and species, holding blue lights in their hands. They had come from across the stars to see the sisters who had carried the human's memory into legend. When Arwain and Leia stepped onto the balcony, the crowd fell silent. A million lights flickered in the dusk, like stars brought down to the ground. Arwain raised her voice. He was one man. He had nothing. But he gave us a story that outlived empires. Her words echoed through the valley. Leia added, her voice trembling, and he taught us that love isn't weakness. It's the strongest thing in the universe. The crowd began to chant softly, in hundreds of voices, hundreds of tongues, but all saying the same words. For the human. For Elias Wren. Later, when night fell and the visitors had gone, Arwain sat alone by the flame monument. The stars above shimmered like watching eyes. Leia approached quietly, holding a folded piece of paper. I found this in the archives, she said. It was his last message, the one he wrote before the embassy burned. Arwain unfolded it with trembling fingers. The words were simple, written in rough ink. If anyone finds this, tell them I was never a hero. I was just someone who couldn't stand watching the world break again. Maybe one day, someone will understand why we keep fighting for what we love, even when it hurts. Tears slid down Arwain's cheeks. She whispered, we understood, Elias. We finally did. As the sisters left the hall, the pebbles' light pulsed once, brighter than before, then faded into a calm, eternal glow. Outside, New Earth's night was clear and vast. The galaxy that once feared humanity now carried their kindness in every corner. And somewhere beyond the stars, in the quiet hum between worlds, a voice seemed to whisper, faint but certain. You stayed together. That's all that mattered. Arwain smiled toward the heavens. Rest now, Elias. Your kindness won. The twin suns rose again, painting the sky gold. And so ended the legend of the man who had nothing, and built a universe of compassion.